Good morning, all of you. Good afternoon. So my name is Alain Faber. Welcome to our Q&A session in science. I've been teaching science for more than 25 years, and today we're going to talk about a few topics, such as the sun, the way it rotates, and something that is interesting. I learned this week that the sun had an inclination. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll talk about power generation in Ontario. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. We're here for another fun show today. So let's see if I can check to make sure that we have the sound, that everything is working well. So we have the system that is coming through, and let's see. We have sound, so that's the main thing here. So I do appreciate this first bit. Good morning, Zunera. Hopefully you're doing very well today. We are doing another session. If you have any questions related to science, put your comments in the section below. Otherwise, just enjoy the show. It will be another good one. So let's double check here. In the last few weeks, we've had some solar flares, a lot of action on the sun, and we've had amazing northern lights. Now, what I've noticed in the last couple of days is that as we are looking at sunspots on the sun, so you can see here some examples. So here we have the sunspots R3663 and R3664. We'll talk about those in a moment. But what is interesting is that as they are migrating over the surface of the sun, it brings up two questions. What is the rotation of the sun on itself? So often we know that the earth is rotating on itself. That's why we have 24-hour days. But what's happening on the sun? We'll answer that, and we'll see what can we expect for the next week or two about the new sunspots on the sun. So let's see if we can have a look together. So when you look at this one here, you can see that, let's see, can I make this a little bit bigger? Very nice. So here is the sun, and we have information here from between May 3rd and May 9th, and I'll give you more information as we go along. So here we have the surface of the sun, and you could see here that we have some sunspots on the northern hemisphere and some sunspots right here close to the equator of the sun. So here there are two sets of hotspots. Now we have learned over the last couple of weeks that when we have sunspots on the sun, there's a lot more solar flares that are coming out of it, and therefore affecting the magnetic field of the earth or our electronics. So let's double check with a little video. So we have this one right here. Perfect. I like this. So this video here shows from May 3rd to May 9th. So we have here the sun that is rotating. That makes sense. So we know, we have in mind that it's turning on itself. That's what we noticed from Earth. We also know in the last couple of weeks, we have here an increased amount of solar flare here on the northern hemisphere. And here we had an increased solar flare on the southern hemisphere, close to the equator. So I'm going to just bring it forward a little bit, something that looks like this. And let's have a look. So we have this segment here a bit further up, and here we have these storms right here. Let's look at the example we have earlier. So there we go. Close to where we have all those solar flares, we have here sunspots in the northern hemisphere, and we have these sunspots right there. So that's something that is interesting here. So first of all, if you look here at this video, so this is accelerated. So as we go along, so we'll narrate a little bit. So we have this video here from May 3rd. And as time is progressing, we can see that there is a rotation here that is going from left to right. So here, so we can see that the sun rotates over on itself faster than the orbit of Earth around the sun. And that's why we can see it here. So what is interesting is that the rotation of the sun on itself is about 25 days. So between 25 and 35 days. You'll say, how come it's different on the sun? So let's have a look. So here you could see that it's moving slowly. And here it's about, so May 3rd to May 9th. So that's about 6 days. So we had here the sunspot and solar flare from down here, and it's moved all the way to this point, and to the north we have moving to this side right here. So things are happening. So if I was to go and bring it back here and go a bit faster, see over 9 days, this is what the sun will go from here to about there. So we had solar flare. Oops, I think it got upset for a second. So we have the solar flare here from the middle part here to the edge. And we have here these sunspots that go from here to about there. So let's go back again. So from the beginning to the end, like this. So here, what's interesting is that there's a change in how fast things are moving. So here we go. We have these flares right here that went from about the middle part here to the edge, so about a third, and about a quarter here of the sun, whereas these ones here started down here, and they have covered a bit faster. So maybe it's about 2/3 of the sun. So somehow, oops, it's flickering a little bit. From what we can see, it seems that the solar flare here with the sunspots, they travel a bit faster here, close to the equator, compared to this one here. So let's have a look at a map. The map is right here. Let's look at this. So thank you for NASA for these amazing drawings. But if you have the sun here, and here we have a vertical axis here, it seems that from what they're publishing, that it takes about 25 days for the surface of the sun to go one full rotation at the equator. However, as we are here on closer to the pole, it's about 35 days to the North Pole and very similar to the South Pole. So here you're going to say, okay, how come it is different? Now keep in mind that the sun is a huge star. Well, it's a medium star, but compared to Earth, it is huge. So what happened is that there's a rotation that is happening. But inside of the sun, we have fusion reaction that are creating energy. We have what do we call this? Convection cells, and close to the surface we have a lot of wind that is happening right here. So what happens is inside we have a lot of things going on at the same times, and it's creating and churning all kind of materials and moving along the equator at 25 days per rotation. Now, as we go further north, what happened is that we are closer to the axis of rotation. And therefore, yes, there is some movement, but it's not as rapid or as chaotic as what we would have here along the equator. And there's a change in how much time it takes. So if you look, so I was looking at on the net, they were saying that the sun takes about 27 days for rotation, but that was an average. So here you have a great example where on the equator, it goes much faster. So let's go back to the video and see what we've got. So here we have the bottom here, perfect. So here we're going to see how over 6 days, we have the flare that are going from the middle part here to the edge. So that's about a quarter of the sun. And here it goes from here all the way to about there, which is about 2/3 of the side we see. And then you're going to see how the rotation happens. So look at this. So it goes and we go this way. So here, that's something to look into. Now, as I do this, there's something else we have to look into. We have to look at the axis of rotation. So here, if you look this way, if you look at the bottom part here, it does move a bit less right here. And here it still moves to the upper part. So let's go back. So here as we go along. So here what's interesting, oops, let's put it this way. So what is interesting is that we have an axis of rotation that is about 7 degrees that is tilted a little bit. So let's see if I can beat. So the axis of rotation of the sun is about 7 degrees tilted on one side. So that means that what we see of the sun changes all year. We say, well, how can we have an analogy? Well, we know that our planet Earth has an axis of rotation of about 23.5 degrees. So what happened is it's tilted on one side. So that means that we have seasons. So during one part of the year, the southern hemisphere is closer to the sun, whereas the northern part is a bit further. And if you go a full 6 months away, it's on the other side, and therefore we have a difference in the distance between the sun and the earth, and that's creating the seasons on our planet. So here we have the sun, and here we have 7 degrees. So the axis probably comes right here. Let's see if I can go back, make it a bit bigger. Very good. So it's probably just right here in the corner, and it's going through and it's coming out just on the other side here. So here we have a tilted sun as it rotates. So what we see from the sun is different throughout the year. So let's go back a little bit and then move this faster. I think it's a great way to see how it goes. So as it goes here, so May 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 9th. I'm going too fast. Let's try again. So we have here May 3rd, 4th, 5th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th. So you could see that it is turning. We see a lot more of the southern hemisphere right now. So on March, we're the closest to this. No, this is the part where from the tilt, we see the most of the southern hemisphere. And then what we see the most of the northern hemisphere is about September. So it changes as we are going through the seasons as well. Is this affecting the season? That's a great question. I don't know. I have to do some research to try to see how much energy comes from sun going to us, depending on the year, depending on how the axis of rotation makes an effect here. But we've seen in the past, and I'll put a link to the video at the end, where we have cycles in the sun. So as you can see, the surface of the sun is quite active. And last week I talked about the sun, about the cycle of about 10 to 11 years, where right now we're at the peak of a cycle where there's the most solar activities on the surface, whereas probably in 5-6 years we'll be in the lowest part here. So the output of the sun makes a difference to what we feel on the planet. Is that affecting our climate? Is that affecting the seasons? That's a good question, because we have a cycle of about 10 to 11 years, whereas we're looking at how climate changes over decades and centuries. So that's something we have to look into. But I thought it was exciting. That's something I have learned this week, knowing that we have here the sun that has a rotation. I knew that, but I confirmed this week that we have here let's see if we can make it better. Here the equator is rotating faster at 25 days per cycle, whereas here at the top it is 35 days, and we have a tilt on the sun. All kind of things we can learn all the time, and it may or may not affect us in ways we know or we realize. And if you have information that I don't know, please put them in the comments below. I'm always looking for more information to learn about our sun, our solar system, and I think it's quite fun. I'm going to also put here a link to a video I did last week on how there's a cycle with respect to the sunspots and how much storms or solar eruptions comes from the sun. So flares, or the amount of flares from the sun, goes up and down in cycles. So I'm going to show here a video about that, and let's see what we're going to learn today. And that is our first video today on astronomy. Hopefully you've learned something new. It was kind of exciting as I progressed this week with learning about our sun. We always have something to learn every day. So hopefully your day is going well. So if you're new to our channel, my name is Alain Faber. I've been teaching for more than 25 years. And as my students are asking me questions, as I notice things on the webs or questions come up, I always try to share information and bring new ideas so that you can understand better. Because in science, questions are always amazing. I do believe that if you have a question and you can find the answer to that question, it allows you to have even better questions. And that's how science evolves. So hopefully you're enjoying yourself as we are going through this show today. So let's see if we can look at let's see what kind of photos I think I can do this one. I think that would be great. Very nice. And see if we can make it bigger. I did that earlier and I don't know how I did this. That's exciting. So copy, print, translate, open, reading mode. Ooh, that's exciting. Okay, so we'll have to do it this way. I think we're going to make it. Okay, wonderful. See if we can make it a little bit bigger to make a point, and then we'll come back in later. Okay. Do you wonder sometimes how much energy is created in Ontario or in your area? Do you ever wonder sometimes what kind of energy is produced and how much we are using in our society? So here's an example about Ontario that I talked to about information I talked to my students this week, and that raised a lot of questions. So we're here to look at how the supply of electrical energy is available in Ontario. If you have any questions as we are going along, put your comments or clarification questions in the comments below. I'm always here to answer your questions as we are progressing. And if you're my students, you will notice that these graphs you've seen in class already. So let's see if we can look at this graph a little bit more. So this graph here shows the supply of energy, electrical energy from Ontario. So if I go here, so this is part of Connecting Today, Powering Tomorrow. It is the power data from Ontario. So this information I have, let's see if I can make it, let's see if I can update it. Very nice. So it's a bit more updated. So let's see. So this is the power data for Ontario as of Saturday, May 18th, 2024. So here what you can see is that we have an Ontario demand of about 14,444 megawatts. When I did my first show this morning, it was about 13,300 at about 8 a.m. today. So there's an increased demand during the day. We can also see that Ontario is also creating energy and selling it to other environments. As you can see here, we also have a variety of sources of energy. The first one is nuclear. Nuclear is about half of the energy from Ontario. So we'll have a quick look at that later on. We have about a third of the energy from hydroelectric energy. We also have gas. So when we have gas here, this is natural gas for the most part because we do not have coal power plants here in Ontario. We also have wind energy. So the wind picked up a little bit. We have solar energy that is getting better as well as the day is progressing. And there was no biofuel energy recorded at 8 this morning. So let's look at here the supply. So let's see if I can go over a week. I think that's more fun. There you go. Perfect. So here we have a graph that tells us some information about the energy production. So here, so as we go along, so the first one we're going to look into, and here you could see how so let's look at this time so you know exactly how much is produced. So right now at 10 a.m. this morning, we have the nuclear energy at about 8,000 megawatts. Now, what's interesting about nuclear energy, let's see if I can get rid of this table. There you go. The nuclear energy is that orange segment at the bottom. So I can show you the legend here. So we have here the nuclear energy. Nuclear energy in orange. So here what we have, we can see that the nuclear energy is a fairly stable amount of energy from Ontario. The reason for that is that a nuclear power plant is amazing, but it's much harder to, it's not like a switch on and off where we can use it anytime and change the output easily. So here what we have, we can see that for the first 4 days of the graph, we have a very consistent production, a very constant production of electricity at about 7,500 megawatts. But then we realized here on the May 16 that we have an increase, so they're playing it a little bit. The reason for that is that I know that in the last few years, they've been refurbishing 1 or 2 of the reactors in Ontario. So very soon, so they're doing some tests to see how we can start those again. Now, the other source of energy we have in Ontario, so let's put here the table. Going from the bottom, you have 4,900, so about 5,000 megawatts, and it's in light blue here. And the light blue is hydroelectricity. So let's see if I can look at the legend, hydroelectricity here. You could see with hydroelectricity, we have another 1/3 of the energy coming from them. That's quite amazing. And you're going to see, well, where's that energy from? Most of it is from Niagara Falls. So here's a quick picture just for fun. Very good. So if you look at this here, this is a picture of Niagara Falls. What happens? So here you have a building of the old electric power plant. And so they are redirecting some of the water from the fall into big tunnels. And here going further south, they are getting turbine to turn. So this is something that started not too long ago. It was, I think it's maybe 2007 or so, plus or minus a few years. I apologize for not having the exact date. But what happened is here we have a difference in potential energy. And it's a great place to do hydroelectricity because we have tons of water and water is running all the time. So going back to my graph right here, you could see that the quantity of energy from Niagara Falls is fairly consistent. Now, we have a valve that we can open and close, so we can play a little bit with how much energy is being used. So this is fairly consistent. The other one that is interesting is the energy in green. So in green here, as you can see, it is in wind. So here at about 10 this morning, the wind was 194 megawatts. But if you go back here on May 13 at about noon, it was about 2,500 megawatts. So from 2,500 to, so here we had about 12 times more wind power. And the reason for that is wind comes and goes. It's very hard to control. But when it's available, then it is very free. It's free power coming towards us and may as well use it as much as possible. So here you could see that during the night of May 13, here we had nuclear energy, we had hydro, we had very few megawatts from gas, and we had 2,500 from wind. So most of it, they're creating no carbon dioxide or any emission. That was amazing. Now you could see as well that as the cycles are going, so during the day, so around between 6 in the morning and 6 at night, you could see that there's an increase in energy demand. Then it goes down, then up again. So every day it goes up and then comes down. Do you have an idea why? Let's have a look. Yes, you're right. It's about the time of the day. So right in the middle of the day, people are waking up, getting up, starting to use energy. And on top of that, we have manufacturers, we have warehouses, we have people going to work, adding more demand on the energy. And as the day is coming to an end, around 5 or 6 in the evening, the demand is going down indeed. So if you're wondering how come sometimes the energy is cheaper during the nighttime, it's that because we are producing energy, but there's so much less demand that we are keeping our nuclear power plant going. We have water from Niagara Falls and a few smaller hydroelectric plants, and therefore energy is available, and they just want to make sure that it's easier to have someone use it and get some money than stopping completely the plants. Good. Very nice. So going up and down every day, you could see that in yellow. So here, if you go right now, we have solar energy is at 208 megawatts. But if you go during the night, we have 0 megawatts. So the sun is a small portion of the energy that we are using. So that's quite nice. As you can see, we're not using any biofuel from what we can see here. There was a little bit yesterday, like in the morning, just to get things started, and that's beautiful. So if you look at the graph, there's one color that we have not talked about. And that one color, let's see if we can look at the legend, see if I can change the way it looks. It is here, gas-powered generator. So what does that mean? So let's look at the graph again. So let's see. Okay, so we've got our graph here. So we see that nuclear energy is constant. The hydroelectric power is also fairly constant. We don't know when the wind comes or go. We have a bit of control over the sun. So there's one thing that we do know that every day there's more demand during the midday for electricity. So that means that we need a way to turn on the switch to create energy if we need to, and turn off the switch when we don't need that anymore. And the easiest way to create energy for that is using natural gas. And the reason for that is that they're just a generator. So it's very easy to turn on a generator or turn off the generator or increase how much power you can get. The more power you need, the more gas you use. I think that's fair for that. But as you can see, okay, let's see. If you look here, for example, on May 14th during the night, the quantity of gas power generator is much lower during the night than during the day right here. So during the day, we have here 3,500 megawatts, and during the we have 1,400, so about half of it during the night. So here we have 3,500 megawatts, but right in the middle of the night, we have 1,200, so about 66% less. The beauty with that one is that generators are creating electricity as needed, but it's also creating gases. So pollution, carbon dioxide, a few other gases, including sulfur, including nitrogen. So what happens is that we want to minimize them. So the best way to minimize it is to take advantage of nuclear energy, the hydroelectric energy, wind, and so on. But when we need energy to make sure the economy is working, we need power. So here you could see how our province is increasing the use of gas generator when needed, and then they're shutting it down or lowering how much we're using gas when it's not needed. And that's the beauty, I think, of what we're doing in Ontario. Now, could this be better? Most likely. If you have any suggestions on how we could improve that, please put it in the comment below. Because as you're looking at some of the news, for example, so there's about 14 million people in Ontario. In the last couple of years, we had an input of about 1.2 million new immigrants. So there are more and more people coming to Ontario, and they're saying that the demand for energy could possibly double in the next 25 years, knowing that we'll have more people. More people means that we can have a much stronger economy, and therefore we need more energy, knowing as well that the electric cars, electrification of networks are also creating a demand on the energy. So what will happen in the future? That's a good question, but this is what is happening right now, and I think it's quite nice. The next thing I'd like to share with you is this map. I thought it's quite nice. I found this morning when I was doing some research for this presentation. So here we have the map that shares with us what kind of energy sources we have in Ontario. So I'm sure that different territories would have similar type of maps or information available. So if you look here on this, so Sir Adambeck is the big power plant here in Niagara Falls right now. And as you can see, we have water here. And the other ones, if we want to have hydroelectric dam, is further north here of Ontario, going all further north, because there's a lot more water. There are river, and what happens is that there's less, how can I say that? Fewer less people in city, and therefore having hydroelectric dam is easier. Now, if you have rapids, then it's easier to redirect water to avoid too much inundation. So you could see that hydroelectricity is quite big in Northern Ontario, and here in Southern Ontario, we just have here at Niagara Falls. You're going to say, how come we don't have hydroelectric dams here in Lake Erie and here the southern part of Lake Hurons here? The reason for that is that you cannot create hydroelectricity with this flat surface of water. You actually need a change in elevation, so that water from a higher elevation going down to a lower elevation will have energy that can be used. So if someone are saying, well, there's so much water in Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, how come we don't have more hydroelectricity being produced? That's the key reason. Niagara Falls is great because we have the falls. Let's see if I can show it to you again. It's always nice. So we have the falls, so big difference in potential energy. Therefore, it's possible. So the other way we can produce energy, so in the southern part here of Ontario, and I'll have to see if I can find pictures, there are fields of, you can see tens and tens of windmills that are producing electricity. these are fairly flat areas. Wind is coming from a long way. So when you're looking at the energy production, when it's can be quite big, the reason for that is that we have quite a few of those fields. Could we do better with wind? Most likely. But keep in mind there's a limitation on the wind energy, because if there's no wind or less wind, it's trickier. Very nice. The nuclear power plants. So we have here two. One is Pickering and the other one is Darlington here in the eastern part of Ontario. And there's another one right here, which is the Bruce Nuclear Complex. So there are three nuclear power plants here in Ontario. Something that is fun, I know that the federal government was able to set aside some amount of money, about $100 million, to work on micro reactors. So here, if you look at the reactors here for nuclear energy, about 73 megawatts of electricity are being used. So let's say on average, each of the power plants are created 2,500 megawatts. So here they're looking for ways to create mini reactors, so micro reactors that will be able to create energy, maybe less than 100 megawatts each. And the beauty would be that we could transport those microreactors much more easily where energy is needed. So here in the southern part, it's easy because the density of people is quite high. But if you go further north, here the density of population is much less. So yes, we having little hydroelectric dams here and there and plants is helping smaller areas. But if you look at this area here, right in the middle, you may have First Nation group here. You need power, but you need power line to bring electricity from this plant to that plant. But imagine if you could have a micro reactor that you can bring with a truck or you can bring with an helicopter. You could actually provide energy for people in further north where resources and infrastructures are not as well defined. Because wires, they require a lot of metal, a lot of resources to set them up, and therefore microreactors, I think, will be a must in the future. That's what I think anyway. With respect to the other parts, we have the sun energy. So here from when I go from Toronto, so here we have some solar farms. I remember seeing those along the highway. I've seen these ones here as well. And there are some here further north. The difficulties with going further north is that the higher up you go in latitude, the more the sun, it comes in at an angle. So the focus of solar energy gets weaker and weaker as we go north. So here will not be as efficient. But here we have quite a few of them as well. We have a gas power plant. So here, gas power plants are great because it gives us energy right away when we need it. And you could see here, there's one close to Ottawa right here, further south. And around Toronto, there's quite a few of those. And the reason for that is that there's a high quantity of people. So maybe if you were to take this line right here, I don't know, maybe 60-70% of the people in Ontario live under this line. And therefore having gas power plants allows us to quickly give energy if needed. So here they mention charbon. Let's see if I can get the English version. I think that'd be fun for you. So here they have, oh, look at this. That's interesting. So I like that. So you could see that the French version of the map says that there are some coal power plants, but we don't have coal power plants since Kathleen Wynne was a premier here in Ontario, and she shut them down completely. And here you could see there's not even any sun generated energy. However, so in early 2000, Ms. Wynne canceled all the coal power plant, and the reason she was able to do that is that we had here the different. Oh, look how the map looks different right now. Interesting. So the French map is quite outdated. I'm going to have to call them to see what they can do about that. So here, the question was that there's no coal power plant, and the reason for that is as soon as we got the new power plant, the new hydroelectric power dam in Niagara Falls, she was able to shift where the energy was from. Until that hydroelectric plant was created, there was no way Ontario could live without the coal power plant. So that's something that has changed quite a bit. So this, and biofuel. So here, if you go further north, you have an idea of where the biofuels are. So biofuel is on the north here. And the reason why it's further north is we have a healthy forestry economic sector. So what happened is that when you cut trees for the lumber industry or otherwise, you often have waste materials, and they're using the waste materials to create wood pellets so that they can use it as biofuel. So here they're using, it's close to being carbon neutral because we're using the carbon that was stored in trees to create energy. Now you have to keep in mind that we have to think that they're using waste materials from the logging industry. Is that happening really? I know that I've watched a documentary where people sometimes they take whole trees to create wood pellets for the industry. So that is something that is to think about. On this, I'm going to probably talk about it a little bit more next week, as I'm covering this week how we're using wood pellet to become carbon neutral for the energy production. However, it seems that there are some unethical ways happening. So we'll talk about that next week, and I think you will enjoy that. And this is the, let's see, so we cannot have a much smaller map. So this is what we've got in, there you go, in Ontario. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. It's always fun to learn from our areas. On this, if you have any questions about power generation in Ontario or any other places around the world, if you have fun and interesting information about electricity production in your areas, put your information in the comments below. I always read them, and I use them as a way to share more information to our audience. On this, I'm going to put here a link to an electrical, let's see, a topic about electricity, probably some circuits. I'm going to put it right here, and I'll see you in this next video where we're going to learn something more. And that is the second video about electricity production. So hopefully you're doing well today. We have here a few people that are here watching the show. The plan is to, if you have any questions about science, if there's any clarification questions, put them in the comments below. I do a live show every Saturday at noon for people that have questions, and I bring forward questions I've heard during the week, or something I've learned during the week, so that you can appreciate and improve what you know in science. So let's see. There you go. So that will bring us to the last bit for this section. So I think we're going to go like this. So let's see if I can look. Let's see. I'm going to stop the screen, and then we're going to share something more. Windows. We have this one here. Okay, we're going to share this one. Perfect. I think that's great. So that's our third and last segment today. I don't know if you like me, but I do love mineralogy. I love how nature creates some perfect crystals, and it's always fun to see. So here on the side, you can see crystals. There, it's a mineral called amethyst. And this is a picture that was from the ROM, which is the Royal Ontario Museum. So when you think of amethyst, we are looking at it's quartz crystals, and there's a little bit of iron in it that gives it this purple color that people enjoy tremendously. So today we're going to talk about crystals, quartz crystals, and if you have any questions about it, please put them in the segment below. So let's see what we're going to learn today. So let's see. Perfect. So I'm going to do on, let's see if I can make it bigger. Awesome. Okay, that's exciting. Okay. Let's do this. So when you think of quartz crystals, we have a specific shape that has a specific form that we can recognize quite nicely. So here we have this sample. Let's see if I can give you some information about it a little bit more. So let's see if we can make this bigger so you can read it. Otherwise, I'll read it for you. So this is a quartz variety. It's called amethyst. It is from the, let's see, I just cannot read. Isn't it amazing? It is, oh, there you go. It's the Anaheim mine in Santa Cruz in Bolivia. So this is from Durama. So let's see if I can give you some examples of amethyst. So amethyst is the mineral of Ontario. So most countries have flags. Provinces here in Canada have their own flags, their trees, their flower, and the mineral. So here's an example of amethyst. Let's see if we can have the camera focusing on this. So let's see. The camera is pretty good. I believe in it. So let's see if it can focus. I'm going to edit this part out as we are. Oh, there we go. So this is amethyst. This sample here you could see with its granite at the back. This is from the Canadian Shield. And we have here this mineral that represents Ontario. This mineral here was taken close to Thunder Bay. As I mentioned, amethyst is the mineral of Ontario. And if you travel close to Thunder Bay, especially going east, you can find a few places where you can, let's see if we can get this focus back. There you go. You can, along the highway, you can find places where you can go and dig your own sample. So as I travel, usually I rarely buy souvenirs. I rarely buy knickknacks for people. I tend to take pictures and send pictures to people, and I collect minerals. It's nice because when I think of a trip, this I remember. It's part of my collection, and it's much better than a t-shirt, I think, that I put in the closet. So here we have amethyst. Now, amethyst is part of the quartz family. So let's see if I can share some other pieces from my collection. So here you can have a quartz crystal. So this is one of my favorite sample from my collection. So you could see the large crystal here of quartz. This is from Madagascar. So in the 90s, I used to work in a small store called Pierre D'ailleurs in Montreal. And I bought a few pieces, not too many because they were expensive. And I was just there as a student at the time. But there's a few things I wanted to have. So this is what it is. Let's see if I can make it closer so you can have a look. So let's see how the focus is. Let's see if I can focus on stability. There you go. Look at how beautiful. So here, quartz crystals, they're made of two elements. It's silicium and oxygen. So here we have the chemical formula, which is SiO2. And when it's in a perfect form, we have translucent crystals. Now, as you can see at the back here, we have a lot of rust. So what happened is, in order to have crystals like this, you have, in geology, you have, for example, rocks and there's fractures. The fractures are creating cavities, and in those cavities of low pressure, what you have is that when you have water in high pressure and high temperature that have some dissolved materials, and it goes into a low pressure, what happens is that it will deposit some of its content. So here you had a chance here of depositing SiO2 or silicium oxide, therefore creating the crystal. For that, you need time. So we're not talking about years or decades or centuries. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, so that the crystals are nicely created. You could see here that after the creation of these crystals in the water, most likely the temperature decreased and the chemistry changed, and that's why you have this rusty part here, the materials that has iron. It's possible it could be carbonate. That's a good question. And then what happened is the iron oxidized when the cavity, for example, could have emptied of water. So this is another nice one I have. The next one I have for you is still another quartz crystal. And this one is from an area in the United States called Herkimer. So Herkimer is a place where we can collect quartz crystals. Let's see if I can make it closer. Let's see, it's coming. So I should really take videos of these before, but I think it's exciting to do it live. So let's see. Can do it. So let's see if I can make it closer to give it a chance to. So this, oh, there we go. So here we have a sample from Herkimer. So we have here, I think it was a sandstone that was and then you have quartz that went through the sand or the materials, and this became silicified in many ways. But when you had cavities, you had a chance for some of the minerals. Let's see if I can turn it so you can see a face. So you could see here, let's see where I can find it. So you could see here the crystal. Now we call them Herkimer diamonds, and the reason for that is they're very, very translucent and let the air going through it. I'll give you another example right here that could be fun. So here's another example that was in a pocket, and you could see how the faces of these crystals. That's what they call Herkimer diamonds. They tend to be very translucent. And here you could see close to my finger here in yellow. Oops, let's see if I can put it in the middle. In yellow, a little bit of crystals. Nice. Another bit of crystal that is coming out on the side right here. So that means there wasn't impurities, and you have a new crystal being put together here. Nice. So these are called Herkimer diamonds. They're also made of silicium oxide. And what's interesting with those is that you can actually see the shape of these crystals. As I mentioned before, so here when I was going to Quebec City one year, I went through the States through Herkimer so I could find these little ones here. That's the destination for people that like to go and hunt for minerals. On this, I'm going to show this one has a conclusion. There you go. So mineralogy is always exciting. It is one purpose for you for traveling. So when you go and travel, you could decide to go for attractions, but some people say, well, let's do something outside. And then having a look at different minerals like this is always exciting. And this will give us the end of my show today. If you've enjoyed the show so far, I will put a link here to another mineral I did it last week or a couple of weeks ago on malachite, and I'll see you in the next video. And this is the last segment I have for us today. I hope that you had a great day today. So far, it is about 1 o'clock where I am. I'm going to wish you an amazing day. If the sun is out, don't forget to go and play outside. I think it's important. On this, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.